My archenemy tagged me. The school doctor adjusted his glasses, his eyes sharp. You mean you were walking along and suddenly fell down, staggered down 23 steps, pushed aside 7 or 8 passers-by, and accidentally threw him under you, ripping his clothes open, and your mouth hit the back of his neck, your teeth embedded in the gland, and you accidentally injected pheromones into him? Yeah. I was still weak after being hugged by my mortal enemy, and I sighed. Yeah, there's nothing I can do. I have to take responsibility. 1. I was so exhausted that I was forced to collapse in Daniel's arms, wishing I could tear him to pieces with my eyes. He didn't care at all, and handed me a piece of paper with a smile. Sign it, temporary partner. After saying this, he seemed to remember something and let out a cry. I almost forgot that you have no strength now. Blame me? Blame me. Daniel put the pen into my palm, covered it with his big hand, and moved it to the paper. I gritted my teeth and resisted, but it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Why aren't you moving? Did you suddenly forget your name? Daniel smiled like a fox. I remember, Matthew. He signed my name with a flourish. The temporary partnership agreement comes into effect. This is a law enacted by the Empire to protect Omegas from being abandoned. As long as a single Alpha and Omega engage in non-criminal marking behavior once, they must sign a temporary partnership contract. The validity period is 3 months, which is exactly the maximum time that a temporary mark can stay in the body. During this period, the Alpha must be responsible for the Omega. It will be automatically terminated upon expiration, or you can voluntarily choose to convert it into a formal contract. What the hell is this protection? It's killing me. Daniel carefully put the contract into his pocket and stood up suddenly. I was caught off guard and subconsciously hugged his neck. When I came to my senses, I was so ashamed and angry that I wanted to hit my head against the wall and die. The shameless villain smiled triumphantly. Hey, the school doctor is still here. Let's go out and make out. The school doctor looked sympathetic. In theory, you don't need to worry too much about this kind of unexpected situation. Just live your normal lives as if nothing happened and 3 months will pass quickly. However, your pheromone matching rate is 98%. So, he didn't continue, but I understood from his eyes. Just wish you the best. 2. My body's reaction has clearly shown me the power of super high matching. In my 20 years of life, this is the first time I feel so weak. The scary thing is that this temporary mark is only half completed. I don't even dare to think about what I will become when the mark is completely completed. The car sent by my family to pick me up was already parked at the school gate, but I couldn't move an inch. Daniel pushed me against the corner of the stairs, glanced at me from a distance and sneered. You still want to go on a blind date when you're like this? I was turning down a classmate's dinner invitation before he came out of nowhere and pushed me over. Because I'm scheduled to meet Jacob's family son tonight, an A-level alpha, who is a perfect match in every way. My family is trying hard to promote this. Well, rather than the word marriage, cooperation might be a more appropriate word. No way, you really want to go? Daniel raised his eyebrows and put his hand on the back of my neck. The numbness was so overwhelming that I could hardly stand. Take my mark and go meet another alpha? His tone was frivolous and his face was full of teasing. I had to be really stupid to believe that he really fell on me by accident. He is taking revenge. It was revenge for me for making him lose face last time. The party was held a month ago, ostensibly to celebrate Nicholas' birthday, but in reality to choose a spouse for him. The candidate had actually already been decided. The spotlight never left Daniel from beginning to end that night. When they invited Daniel to come up and cut the cake together, Nicholas turned his eyes to me. I want to be with Matthew. There was an uproar. I tactfully reminded him, I'm an Omega. I know. I just want to be with you. It was obvious that Nicholas was not satisfied with the partner his family had arranged for him, and he didn't like Daniel. It's understandable. After all, Daniel doesn't have a very good reputation in the circle. He is cynical, frivolous, and unruly, and he takes advantage of his wealth and power to do whatever he wants. Such people are not sincere. But I know another secret. Nicholas and the bodyguard behind him had already communicated with each other and would not accept any alpha other than him. You don't want to? He was begging me. Daniel leaned against the wall with a nonchalant look on his face, watching the show from a distance, as if he had forgotten that he was also a part of the show. My family reminded me not to meddle in other people's business, but I went forward anyway. Of course I would. It's my honor to cut the cake with you as your best friend. In fact, I have only met him twice, but who would be stingy with polite words? I thought Daniel really didn't care. I just found out today that he really cares about it. Damn, so petty. 3. Daniel held me down, took out his cell phone and made a call. Park the car in front of the school hospital and send someone to inform Matthew's family. He lowered his eyes to look at me and smiled. Master Matthew is visiting my home today. Hey, who said I was going to your house? I'm not going. Daniel hung up the phone without saying anything. Oh, why didn't you tell me earlier? It's too late. My people are very efficient. They have probably contacted your family by now. Once you say something, you can't take it back. I was so angry that I wanted to go crazy and hack him to death. Killing is against the law. Please restrain your murderous intent. Resisting the urge to roll my eyes, I gritted my teeth and squeezed out the words. I already said I'm not going. I'll go home by myself. You can't even stand steadily and you're going home by yourself. Do you know that you're in heat now? What? We are so compatible. My pheromones have caused you to go into heat. Your body needs me now. Insult. This is a huge insult to me. This is impossible. Staring at me? Believe it or not, in your current state, if I release some pheromones, you'll faint? Still staring? TSK. It seems you don't believe it. For after waking up from Daniel's bed, I stared at the ceiling for 2 full minutes. I actually really fainted. The culprit rested his head on his side, lying beside me, looking at me with a smile. Seeing that I was awake, he sat up and raised his hands. Just to be clear, I haven't done anything yet. If he dares to do it, I will really kill him. Not wanting to give him any more looks, I got out of bed and walked out. As soon as his feet touched the floor, he felt weak and fell straight down. Luckily, the carpet was thick enough so it didn't hurt. But there was a ball of fire in his body that suddenly rose into the air, stirring up a wave of heat. Daniel still maintained the surrender posture. I've already said that I haven't done anything yet, so you can't do anything either. There was really nothing I could do. I felt so weak that I couldn't even muster any strength. Daniel picked me up easily, put me back on the bed easily, and pressed me down easily. I was still making my last struggle. Don't you have any inhibitors at home? Have. But I won't give it to you. Where's my knife? Where's my knife? The hot breath landed on the back of my neck, stirring up a wet shudder. The consciousness is very divided, resisting desperately, but also madly catering to it. Instinct and heart are fighting back and forth. Noticing my trembling, Daniel stopped. He held my hand, which was tightly grasping the bed sheet, in his palm, and the temperature was so hot that it made me jump with fear. Please, a 98% match. I've been holding back for so long, and I'm almost at my limit. Compared to his previous voice, it is now a little more hoarse and unbearable. But you asked for this, didn't you? You deserve it. Yes, I did it on purpose. Hit me if you can. You, The cursing stopped abruptly. Who is moaning? Damn, is it me? I covered my mouth tightly, unable to believe that I had made such a sound. Daniel chuckled. I haven't bitten it yet. He wasn't really biting, he was licking. I started cursing again. His whole body is soft, but his mouth is hard enough to plow 10 miles of land. Don't be impatient. Do you understand the pre-meal ritual? What do you smell like? Lemon. I closed my eyes and muffled my voice. Bergamot. It is often ridiculed by others as a toilet freshener. Pheromones that are not presentable are not high-end at all. My overall assessment is greatly reduced because of this S-level strength and B-level judgment. Oh, so fresh. I like it. When I think about the future, I will be covered with your scent. Why do normal words sound so obscene when they come out of his mouth? Daniel's pheromones are also quite unique in that they have no smell, like boiled water. But thanks to this, although my body is reacting strongly, my brain is still clear. Are you relaxed now? Then I'll start. 5. Daniel received 3 injections of inhibitors. None of us expected that the previous reaction was just an appetizer for the 98 matching degree. With ease, just enough, does not exist. He couldn't help but continue exploring while cursing. I couldn't help but respond while searching for a suitable weapon. On the verge of losing control, Daniel raced against time against his own body, trembling as he put the suppression patch on me. I crawled around, rummaging through boxes and drawers to find an inhibitor for him. We were both as miserable as dogs. While he was giving himself his 4th shot, I reached into his trouser pocket. I saw him stuff the contract here before. I have to find it and tear it up. I don't want to be tied to him for 3 months. It would be hard to explain to my family. Hey, why isn't there? Daniel slowly pushed the injection in without stopping me, and kindly reminded me, I took the wrong one. I won't put it here. I reached in the other side. There are none here either. What about the contract? Daniel grabbed my wrist and moved me to the middle. Here, can you feel it? It's pretty impressive, isn't it? I'm seriously thinking about the consequences of crushing it. How many years will I have to spend in jail? He must have noticed what I was thinking and quickly pulled my hand out. After a moment of fear, I breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, if you touch it again, it will wake up again and you won't be able to run away. I didn't want to argue any further, so I asked directly, where's the contract? Oh, I put it in the safe. Then he added, if you can open it, everyone in my family will take your last name. It seems that the 4th shot has completely taken effect. He returned to his nonchalant look and raised his eyebrows at me. Don't stare at me with those pretty eyes. I'm actually quite a beast. You are worse than an animal, I said. 6. On the way home, I had a feeling there was going to be a storm. Sure enough, as soon as I entered the door, I was called to the study. My father lowered his head and flipped through the documents without even looking at me. Why did you break the appointment? Jacob's family is very unhappy. I feel sick. If you feel sick, you can go to Daniel's family to feel better? To be honest, it is comfortable. A temporary mark of high fit. The pleasure soars to the sky. It feels so good. Don't have any thoughts that you shouldn't have. Daniel's family is not something you can get. New. My gentleness softened his tone somewhat, and he finally looked up at me. I heard that your score dropped again in this evaluation. A friend told me that to be with Jacob's family, one must give birth to at least 2 A-level alphas. I was so scared that I deliberately held back when testing my physical fitness. Just kidding, with the current alpha drop rate, it's already difficult to get a B level, let alone 2 A levels. If I really married into his family, I would be killed the moment I opened my eyes. Jacob's family didn't bother you this time. You must go to the meeting next week. New. Before I turned around and walked out, I couldn't help but ask, Father, won't you ask me why I feel so bad today? He waved his hand and motioned me to go out. I nodded calmly and closed the door for him. When I returned to the room, the bathtub was already filled with hot water. Halfway through taking off his clothes, he paused. I closed my eyes helplessly and desperately, and finally lay down in the bed with my clothes on. The perfect temperature enveloped me. I scooped up a handful of water and splashed it on my face, but the heat could not be dissipated. I am really impressed. I was just bitten once and touched twice, but it was actually wet. I hate that I'm an omega. Hate that omegas are naturally suppressed and attracted to alphas. I hate that the person who is so compatible with me is the prodigal Daniel. The more you don't want to see someone, the more likely they are to appear in front of you. When I saw Daniel from a distance, I grabbed my friend and turned away. The friend was puzzled. Why are you hiding from him? The contract only binds the alpha. Apart from being responsible, he can't force you to do anything. He is right. If I hadn't been so overwhelmed by the heat of horniness, I would never have let him mark me a second time. Hey, wait, just constrain alpha. I blinked. My friend took 2 steps back silently. Your expression usually means you are planning something bad. Bad things are already stirring in my stomach. Have you brought the suppressant? Give it to me. What? And tooth for a tooth. 7. When we found Daniel, he was chatting with a group of stinky alphas about last weekend's football game. I knew he had seen me a long time ago. Although his posture didn't change and the conversation didn't stop, his expression betrayed him. The tips of his eyebrows were slightly raised, and the corners of his mouth were curled up and couldn't be suppressed no matter how hard he tried. A friend once said that you can tell at a glance whether two people have slept together. The eyes will be drawn, and small movements cannot cover it up. Indeed, Daniel and I just lay in the same bed for a while, and the atmosphere changed. I walked straight up to him, ignoring the stares and muffled whistles around me. Daniel pretended to be calm, leaning against the wall with a playful smile. Hey, my temporary partner, weren't you hiding from me just now? Action replaces answer. The moment her arms wrapped around his neck, the sound of people cheering and screaming exploded in his ears, and Daniel's body suddenly tensed up. Matthew, did you take the wrong medicine? I looked up with an innocent look on my face. I didn't take the wrong medicine. I just wanted it. The booing grew louder. Daniel glanced at everyone else with a cold face, then quickly smiled again, lowered his eyes and glanced at me, trying to take back the home court. What, are you addicted? Can't leave me? Do you know how good I am? The right hand slowly slid down from his shoulder, across his chest, and moved to his lower abdomen. His eyes suddenly darkened. The sight is getting warmer little by little. It is easy to capture an alpha who is not on guard at all. I smiled at him, raised my hand and tore off my suppression sticker. Holy shit, you're fucking crazy. The amusement and calmness disappeared from his face without a trace. He panicked. He quickly reached out to cover the back of my neck and glued it back on for me. But within a few seconds of tearing it off, the scent of bergamot has already filled the air. The fragrance is slightly sweet and a little bitter. Daniel held me in his arms and yelled to everyone around him, "What are you looking at? Get out of here. Go away." They have never seen such a good show before. My daily life is so boring that I can't bear to leave. Only after Daniel gritted his teeth and used pheromones to suppress it did they slowly take a few steps outside. Don't go, what am I going to perform if you leave? Matthew, I'm going to kill you when I get back. Seeing that he was about to contact the driver, I pressed his hand. I still have something to say. His breathing had become noticeably rapid. His chest was heaving, and his eyes were red. Let's talk about it when we get back. I hooked my arm around his neck and pressed him down. Say it now. Daniel's body temperature was frighteningly high, and the alphas could no longer resist the pressure of the high-level pheromones and retreated further. It was a bit of luck. Fortunately, I took so many inhibitors in advance. He may have realized that something was wrong, but he still bent down obediently and let me rest my chin on his shoulder. I blew gently on his neck and was not surprised to see his skin instantly turn red. This is probably his limit. I whispered each word in his ear. Shit, partner. Daniel's pupils suddenly contracted. The next second, I bit hard on his gland.
I skate very fast.
When I heard the follow-up, the dinner with Jacob was coming to an end. Jacob quickly typed a response on his phone, unable to hold back his smile. Someone told me that the ancestor of Daniel's family was forcibly marked by an omega. I cut a piece of steak slowly and leisurely, feeling very happy. Oh, he's so useless. That omega is really presumptuous. Daniel will kill him if he catches him. I wanted to respond casually to the topic, but the contempt in his tone, or the fact that he was playing with his phone throughout the meal, made me feel unhappy. So I changed my mind. Jacob, what do you think of that omega? Jacob looked up at me for the second time tonight, the first time being when he introduced himself. Perhaps seeing how serious I was, he couldn't just give me a perfunctory response and had to put his phone upside down on the table. A person who behaves in such an uneducated and inappropriate way cannot possibly be from a noble family. At least, Jacob's family will never deal with such a person. I nodded. Jacob is right. He was very satisfied with my agreement and continued to put forward the second point. Besides, his motive is to attract attention. Does he think he is the male lead in an idol drama? He did such a shameful thing in public. I can't think of any other purpose except to seduce someone in a different way. I really want to record it and send it to Daniel and ask him, were you seducing last time? I guess his face would turn green. Whenever I think of him, I remember that line of argument. I couldn't help but ask Jacob, Jacob, do you think there is a possibility that the Omega was walking well and suddenly fell down, staggered over, pushed away 7 or 8 passers-by, and accidentally threw himself into his arms, just in time to tear open his clothes, and his mouth happened to hit the back of his neck, and his teeth were embedded in the gland, and he didn't notice that he had injected pheromones into him? Jacob looked at me seriously for a moment. I was the first to laugh. Haha, Jacob, I was just kidding. Did you take it seriously? This is obviously not funny. He picked up his phone again and I lost my appetite. That's pretty much it for tonight. It ended a little early and the driver hadn't arrived yet. Jacob waited with me at the door. I noticed that a young man across the restaurant was staring at this side. He would occasionally look down and fiddle with his phone, and Jacob's message tones rang one after another. After getting in the car, I asked the driver to turn around at the intersection ahead, and just in time I saw the boy jumping into Jacob's arms. 9. When I got home, my father was not at home. I breathed a sigh of relief, as I hadn't figured out how to report tonight's progress. The housekeeper wanted to say something to me, but I waved my hand. I've been pretending to be decent and elegant all night. I'm so tired and don't want to hear anything.
Master, your?
The housekeeper was persistent. I also ran upstairs quickly and stubbornly, leaving him behind. As soon as I opened the door, a big hand suddenly grabbed my wrist. Before my brain could react, I was pulled inside. Through the door, the butler's voice came slowly. Your good friend has been waiting for you all night. My good friend Daniel pushed me against the door with a smile on his face. He covered my mouth with one hand, blocking my cry for help. I continued to intimidate him with my eyes. This is my territory. How dare you mess with me? He really dares to do something reckless. He grabbed the shirt and it turned into rags that were thrown onto the ground. I was stunned. I thought I would be messed up like that rag, but he let me go, took 2 steps back and sat directly on my bed with a big smile on his face. You can shout now. Call everyone in to let them see how I bullied you. It would be best if they were filled with righteous indignation and demanded that I be held responsible for you. It's a nice thought. 3 months of revenge on me is not enough. You want to take revenge on me for a lifetime? I shut my mouth tightly, not breathing. You bastard. Weren't you very brave this afternoon? I couldn't help but retort, you are a bastard. Daniel sneered angrily and pulled my arm to force me to look at the back of his neck. If you're not a dog, then what are you? Did you know that you almost took the gland away with you? Oops, that bite was really deep. I continued to be stubborn. It's even now. No one owes anyone anything from now on. What's that? It was an accident. I was so angry that I sneered. Accident? If a normal person could fall like that, I'd take your last name. She broke free from his hand and was about to see him off, but her foot suddenly tripped over a wrinkled carpet and she fell forward uncontrollably, directly into Daniel's arms. Both hands were pressed on his chest, and he subconsciously clenched them tightly. He had a calm expression and looked like he had been gone for a while. I scratched my face. Daniel, this is really an accident. Do you believe it? Don't I have a last name? My last name is Xie. He took a deep breath. Now your last name is Xie too. 10. This time I was definitely wrong. I urged him to take off his clothes to see if he had any scratches, but he hesitated and refused to do so. I got anxious and tried to tear my shirt the way he did, but I couldn't. He glanced at my red knuckles and said, "Okay, I'll do it myself." As he spoke, he grabbed the hem of his shirt and quickly took it off. The full and strong muscles rose and fell in front of me, and I was stunned for 2 seconds. When he came to his senses, Daniel had already covered his chest with his hand. It's a tattoo, and it seems to be in cursive script, but I can't see it clearly. The one in your heart must be your sweetheart. Looking down, I saw a few bright red spots around the light brown color, which made me nervous. How about I get you some ice? Daniel couldn't believe it. You're going to ice this spot? No? What will happen if I apply it? I am thirsty for knowledge. He avoided my burning gaze, and his voice became inexplicably hoarse. Matthew, do you realize? What? Now neither of us is wearing any. I quickly looked down and luckily, my lower body was still dressed. Moreover, it was a bit weird that he said this to me while covering the name of his sweetheart. And a little curious. You have someone you like. How come I've never heard of him? Her? Isn't he? She in your circle? Is protected too well. I've known for a long time that Daniel is good at controlling public opinion. The temporary tag last time and the one I was attacked today were not spread out and I was the protagonist. Daniel raised his eyelids and glanced at me, his smile full of mockery. He turned into a dog. Oh, an unexpected development. Then accept my condolences. After saying that, I yawned and said, It's getting late. I won't see you off. Just go back to where you came from. Daniel didn't get up, but lay down lazily. Matthew, have you forgotten what I'm here for? Come to me for an explanation. It didn't fool me. 11. Daniel said it was okay to call it a draw, but the judgment depended on the severity of the situation. My bite was 10 times harder than his, and I almost deprived him of his status as an alpha. It was serious, very serious. After accounting for the 2 times he marked me, I still owed him 8 times. After some bargaining, the price has been reduced to 5 times, and half of them will be executed tonight. I resigned myself to my fate and lay down, but he picked me up and let me sit in his arms. The solid chest pressed against my back, and I couldn't help but shrink back. You should put on some clothes before continuing. The hot breath sprayed on my skin, and the familiar pleasure invaded my mind inch by inch. I vaguely recalled that although Daniel was a playboy in the circle, there had only been rumors about him and I had never actually seen the other protagonist in the rumors. Can't be just his personality. In fact, he has never touched any omega and he is so frustrated. No wonder pheromones are odorless yet extremely strong, stuck in my body and unable to dissolve. He seemed dissatisfied with my distraction and kept grinding the gland with his teeth, which made me unable to bear it, so I took the initiative to stuff the gland into his mouth. Can you please stop wasting time and give me a quick death? Daniel gave me pleasure very happily. In the midst of the overwhelming pleasure, I suddenly realized something very important. Wait a minute, Daniel. There are no suppressants in my room. Daniel can't seem to slow down. Damn it. Why didn't you say so earlier? As he scolded me, he kissed my shoulders, pecking and kissing me all the way down. It's not too late. I couldn't control my body at all. I pushed my waist towards him and with trembling hands I sent a message to the housekeeper, asking him to send the inhibitor over. The housekeeper did not reply. I glanced at the time. It was 10 o'clock in the evening. He should be practicing that damn waltz in his room without fail, preparing to conquer his aunt next month with his dancing moves that looked as if his limbs had just been reassembled. Damn. Matthew's family property is usually occupied by just me and the housekeeper, and it is quite deserted. Several brothers are alphas, and the worst one is not even qualified for a rating, but still enjoys the liveliness of the room. My father basically lives in our family home. He rarely comes to visit us and he only cares about the development of Jacob and me. But for now, it's better if he doesn't come. But the next second, my father's voice sounded outside the door. Matthew, come to my study. Daniel and I were both shocked and speechless. Why are you going to the study room? Your pants are half off. I tried to steady my breathing. Dad, I'm not feeling well right now. Can you come back later? You only have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. The butler hasn't finished dancing yet. Daniel nudged me in an ambiguous way. Why don't you just be honest? I glared at him fiercely. If you dare to make a sound, I will bite off your glands. Tisk. Daniel surrendered. That's hot, baby. Matthew, who are you talking to? I raised my hand and covered Daniel's mouth tightly. I heard the sound of the handle twisting and said anxiously, I'm in heat. I'm in heat. Twist to stop. The person outside the door took 2 steps back. You didn't lose your composure in front of Jacob, did you? No, we had a good chat tonight. Father. Can you help me get the suppressant? No response. After a while, the butler came knocking on the door. The master has gone home. Do you have any instructions, young master? I stared at the door handle for a while and only realized my voice was hoarse when I spoke. No, go and rest. I felt a warm and moist touch on the palm of my hand, and when I came to my senses, Daniel was looking at me meaningfully. He grabbed my wrist and moved away, smiling. What do you mean? After so many years, I should have gotten used to it. I'm used to my father not caring about this. I took another look at the closed door, pursed my lips, and took off the last piece of cloth on my body. It means, you can continue. 12. I am not a tool for you to use to piss off your father. Daniel stood up. The interruption had dissipated a lot of the charming atmosphere, and the out-of-control pheromones were temporarily controlled. Which room is the inhibitor in? I'll go get it. Seeing that I didn't answer, he waved his hand in front of my eyes, saying jokingly, What, are you obsessed with it? You've been busy this evening. You were chatting with Jacob 1 minute, and now you want to continue chatting with me the next. You're an S-level time management master. There was a sour taste in the mockery. I couldn't help laughing out loud. You're still laughing. You won't be able to laugh after following Jacob. Daniel put away his casual attitude and looked serious. He has an Omega outside and dotes on her very much. He loves her to death but is a coward who dares not confront his family. You'd better think carefully. She really doted on him and replied to the boy's messages immediately all night long. When he put down his phone to talk to me, the table was numb from the vibration. But that's not what I'm laughing at. He said that if you caught me, you would kill me. You're crazy. Murder is against the law. I remember saying that. Indeed, I nodded. But when I become someone's exclusive Omega, it's not certain. Even if I get killed in bed, I can blame it on pheromone intolerance. The room suddenly fell silent. Daniel stared at me without missing a beat. I felt creepy and weird. What are you doing? I want to kiss you. You look like a wet puppy right now. Grinning and pitiful. Kinda cute. He held my head and pressed me down. I changed my mind and want to continue. Isn't this change too sudden? I subconsciously raised my hand and pressed it. Right on his tattoo. I'm so sorry. This by Yue Guang who is turned into a dog. It's me? Don't fucking move. I slapped him away and moved closer to look at the string of cursive characters carefully. It was indeed the spelling of my name. Your name, by Yue Guang, is the same as mine? Daniel nudged his cheek, which was red from my slapping, and nodded with a fake smile. You'd better have the energy to slap me later, you bastard. The softness and warmth covered my lips, and with a snap, my mind completely lost. The consequence of allowing 98 matching without restraint is a flood. Daniel realized that I would slip no matter where he put me, so he just picked me up and pushed me against the wall. Matthew, I am responsible now, right? My consciousness was hazy and I instinctively refused. Damn it. You want to deny it after you're done? I admit it. I patted his shoulder. I'll pick you next time. Daniel was stunned for a moment. Then he gritted his teeth and squeezed my waist. Do you know what's happening now? If I go in a little further, it will be over. He even threatened me. I threatened back. You can try. I will make myself a widow tomorrow. Daniel laughed angrily. You are such a daredevil. You are so cruel to me. But how come you dare not say a word in front of your dad? He hit the nail on the head. I sighed. He didn't understand that if he wore the mask of obedience for too long, he couldn't take it off. If you are praised by your family for being well-behaved and sensible since childhood, and when you grow up and are asked how you became like this, you will experience mental stress. My father's disappointed look is what I fear most. I shook my head and hugged the hot body in front of me. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Is this the end? Provoking someone is effective. Tonight, I allow my soul to run towards rebellion without hesitation and resolutely challenge patriarchy and conventions. 13. When I woke up, Daniel was cleaning up the battlefield. The air is still full of our scent. Bergamot and mountain spring water are neutralized together, diluting the cheapness and vulgarity. making it soft and elegant. Your butler looks a bit old. I'm afraid he'll be scared to death. Oh. Then you are quite considerate. I turned over and secretly rummaged through his clothes. When I was losing consciousness last night, he seemed to have coaxed me into signing something. I searched everywhere but couldn't find it. That shouldn't be possible. Could he have put it back into his home safe overnight? Are you looking for this? Daniel raised the paper in his hand. It was the temporary partner contract he had signed earlier. There are 2 signature spaces below the contract, and signing represents your willingness to make it official. I was so scared. I thought it was some kind of property transfer. I lazily lay back down. Don't you know that without a third person to witness it, the signature is invalid? I know. Can't I just enjoy watching it myself? I kind of don't understand him. If you really want to be my partner, why don't you go with the family instead of doing something sneaky like this? He folded the paper carefully and shrugged. Because your father once said that there will never be a chance for you and me. This is a bit surprising to me. I turned over and figured it out. Jacob and I are only 11% compatible. But for Daniel and I, it was almost 100% destiny. When destiny is fulfilled, the body and mind will unconditionally obey the other. This means that my father will lose control of me. In his eyes, if I couldn't always remain loyal and obedient to the family, I would be a waste. What a boring reason. I took out my cell phone and started sending messages. Daniel came over and snuggled into my arms, nudging me with his head. We made such a big noise last night. Why didn't the butler come to catch us in the act? The butler has poor hearing and may not be able to hear the dance even if it happens near him. Seeing Daniel starting to move around restlessly again, I pushed him away, got out of bed and put on my clothes. Just keep lying there. He'll come over after 2 more hours of sleep. But judging by his way of thinking, he'll probably think it's just a good friend trying to keep him warm. Daniel stood up. Where are you going? I rolled up the clothes he had torn into a ball and threw them into the trash can with a cheerful tone. I've made an appointment with Jacob for lunch. After saying that, she ignored his suddenly dark face and quickly slammed the door and left. 14. Jacob responded to my polite greeting with a cold frown and a lecture. Remember not to contact each other privately during this kind of meeting. This will not happen again. I said oh and nodded. New. He treated me to dinner last time, so I have to return the favor. By the way, talk to him clearly and there is no need for the 2 of you to continue contact. He glanced at the menu, ordered 2 items at random, and started replying to messages. I brought up the topic several times, but he just responded perfunctorily. In the end, I finished my portion in silence and he was still unaware. It was not until I called the waiter to pay the bill that he looked up with an unhappy look on his face. Matthew, eating at the same speed as the other person is a sign of good manners. Didn't your family teach you that? I said oh again and nodded. Leaning forward, he snatched his phone away, pressing it to send a voice message. Come and take your cowardly alpha away. Then, to his shock and astonishment, she threw the phone into the red wine glass and poured it over his head. You're right. I, Matthew, will never deal with someone as uneducated as you. The news spread quickly. Minutes after I left the restaurant, I received an angry call from my father. Get back here. So funny. I'm not a tire. How can I roll? When passing by the hotel, I suddenly felt like I hadn't left yet. So I took a photo and sent it to Daniel, asking him if he wanted to come out and get a room. He quickly replied to me, Wait a minute, baby. I'm in your dad's study now. I rolled back home quickly. The old butler saw me and said leisurely, Young master is back. The master and your good friends are waiting for you. I was very nervous. Did Daniel get beaten? He tilted his head. I didn't hear it. Feel a little relieved. However, as soon as he opened the door, he saw Daniel with blood on his head. There was a broken paperweight at his feet. Daniel raised his eyebrows and smiled at me nonchalantly. It doesn't hurt. Not as hard as you hit me last night. Seeing my father starting to look for a suitable weapon again, I hurriedly pulled him behind me. What about the contract? Seeing that he was standing there without moving, I reached out and took it out. Stop touching me, stop touching me. If you keep touching me, I'll get hard. Daniel pulled out the contract from the lining of his clothes. Here. When I saw it, I almost died of anger. Why don't you sign it yourself? You fainted after signing. Shouldn't I take care of you first? Okay. Without wasting any more words with the scoundrel, I picked up the pen on the desk and put it in his hand, then held his hand and signed his name. Temporary becomes formal. I picked it up and looked at it up and down with satisfaction, then held it up for my father to look at it from top to bottom. Thank you for coming here today to be the third witness. Seeing that he was about to lose his temper, I quickly grabbed Daniel and tried to run. I tried it for a second, but it didn't move. I tried twice, but still couldn't move it. I was anxious. Are you fucking addicted to being beaten? He smiled and patted my hands, motioning for me to go out first. Be good. I'll come find you after I finish a few words. When Daniel got serious, he had an irresistible aura of majesty. I calmed down, nodded, and gave them space. The housekeeper and I squatted at the door. I was uneasy and started to make small talk. You're not hard of hearing, are you? He didn't answer me. Well, guessed wrong. After a long while, the butler suddenly said, Don't worry, young master. Our generation played more lavishly than you did. He smiled at me, stood up, and walked down slowly. Just as I walked out of my sight, the study door opened. Daniel leaned against the door and raised his head proudly. Does the room booking still count? 15. I questioned him all night before he was willing to reveal what he had talked about with my father. It's nothing more than power and profit that profit-seeking people care about most. It's boring. Just sell me out. Of course, there are some other things, such as a collar for the puppy. He raised his hand and lit the contract on the incense beside the bathtub. I was surprised. Just burned like that? It's not necessary now. I originally thought of this as a last resort because I heard that you were going to contact Jacob's family. The tattoo on Daniel's chest was soaked in the water, undulating under the ripples. Seeing that I was staring intently, he grabbed my index finger and traced it bit by bit with his fingertips. I pulled my hand back in disgust. I can't stand your sudden innocence. I have always been innocent, okay? Your father forbade me to hang out with you, and I was devastated. My family advised me to do it even though I knew it was wrong, which would only bring trouble to you. After all, you are famous for being filial and sensible. Damn it, I am dying of suffocation. I couldn't hold it in any longer, so I went to get my name tattooed. TSK. I'm in love and can't stand it anymore. So, when did you fall in love with me? 3 years ago during the horseback archery class, when you shot down my 10 ring. What? Did it hit you in the heart? Do you have to use such old-fashioned words? What you say is very old-fashioned. Daniel was angry that I didn't understand his romanticism, and didn't understand how handsome I was when I drew the bow with a blank expression. I really don't understand. I just know that the bathtub seems to be getting stickier and stickier the more I soak in it. Just as I was about to get up to take a shower, he pulled me back to sit. It's not over yet. The chat afterwards is over, bro. I stopped because I felt you wanted to chat. Now I'm going to start.